Yeah, I'm going to go to this interview, so I'm going to take my, my lucky coin with me or something like that.
Yeah.
In case
Right.
it'll just make me feel better. But, this is just giving in to this kind of pagan thinking. And it's not, it takes away from trusting the Lord.
Right.
So, if you're going into the interview and you want the job and you've prayed, Lord, if this is the job that you want me to have, I'd really like to have this job. Help me do good in the interview, et cetera. Help me be okay with the results. Then you go in trusting the Lord, not, well, I'm going to take this lucky coin with me just in case, which is completely opposite of trusting God. So these things are opposite of God.
Okay, welcome back to Campfire Apologetics. I'm Mark Hudson, and I am joined again by Marcia Montenegro. She's kind of becoming a veteran of the show here, and might have to ask you to, co-host at some point. But yeah, she's been on 2 other times, and we talked about a lot of different New Age, New Thought philosophies and teachings and things like that. And today we are going to be talking about a book that she wrote quite a long time ago, but then you re-released it recently. So that book is called Spellbound. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Spellbound and why you chose to, I guess, republish or re-release it? When did you write the original? That was
the original was written in 2000. Well, it was published in 2006.
Okay. Yep. So almost 20 years later.
Yeah. Right. And this time it was republished by Midwest Christian Outreach and October 31st, 2024. So just a few months ago. The reason Spellbound was written is I was actually asked by an acquisition editor at Cook to write a book about the occult for Christian parents. That was the main idea, to let them know what the occult is and where we see it in the culture. So that was the main idea of the book. And so I had the book divided up into different areas of the occult. I have an introduction that explains what it is. And my main passage that I use, which is the kind of the foundation of the book, is Deuteronomy 18, verses 10 and 11. And this is where Moses is, bringing the people through the wilderness. And of course, they're encountering a lot of pagan cultures. And they're going to go into, they thought they were going to go into the promised land. Most of them didn't make it, but or a lot of them initially didn't make it. The initial crowd didn't make it. But so God is warning them about these practices. And verses 10 and 11 in Deuteronomy 18 actually is a complete list of the occult practices. You can always subdivide, there's a lot of categories and there's probably thousands of different forms of occult practices, but they would all fall under one or more of these categories. And God actually lists the main ones. He lists divination, which we usually call fortune telling. He has a spirit contact with the dead, and sorcery, casting spells, reading omens, and also depending on the translation or the version you have, the words will differ. So in Spellbound, I talk about the Hebrew words, and what they mean because of that. Because if I talk about the English words in the New American Standard, is going to be different than the English words in the NIV or
you might not drive the point completely home.
Or the King James has I think King James has the word augury, which is a very old-fashioned word that I think kind of like reading omens, if I remember correctly. But I mean, nobody today really uses the word augury that I've heard of.
Not that I've experienced.
So it's good. So what you do is you look at the Hebrew words
Right.
and you research those, and then you get the idea of what they're referring to. It's actually very interesting because in a couple of cases, the Hebrew words actually are using the sound of something as the meaning, like the word for, I think casting a spell is also, it can be interpreted like enchantment. And it has to do with, with when people were doing this, like casting a spell, they were like whispering under their breath, whispering these words. And so the word actually sounds like a kind of a whisper.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an onomatopoeia, they call it in English, a
Yeah.
word that sounds like what it means.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's kind of interesting to look those words up. So I enjoyed that. And then I have the book divided in the different categories of divination and sorcery and spirit contact. And I talk about specific areas like astrology. I have a whole chapter on astrology. I have a whole chapter on the Ouija board. I have 2 chapters on doing magic, occult magic, which is sorcery. I have 2 chapters on spirit contact, which is contacting the dead and also any disembodied beings. And then the end of the book is answering objections. So when you have children, especially teenagers, who object to you saying something like, we're not going to have a Ouija board, I'm not going to buy you a Ouija board, and they come back with answers, I have suggestions for what you can say. Oh, also at the end of each chapter, I have something called Bringing It Home, which is supposed to be helpful for the parent or adult in explaining that particular chapter to the child or young teenagers. I would say the book is mainly written for adults dealing with children about ages, probably ages 6 to 14 primarily.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you could go up a little bit, 15, 16, but it's probably primarily that age group, and those suggestions are with that age group in mind.
Yeah. 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 Speaking of kids, kind of a side note. Ahead of time, if my kids are off school now, so they're in the other room, so there is a chance that they might come in and interrupt, but
Okay. Okay.
because they are 6 and 9, and yeah,
Oh,
they can only listen for so long, but you know, but yeah, that's it's helpful as a parent, being aware of these, just there's so many different facets, I guess, of these kind of occultic teachings and practices, and there's so many there's so many different ways that it's kind of like Trojan horsed itself into
mm-hmm,
even Christian belief,
mm-hmm.
like there's times where I'll hear a friend, it'll be a Christian friend, and maybe we're talking about something, and even out of like a joke or something, they'll be like, oh, don't say that out loud. Don't speak that into existence type thing, and
Oh, yes, yes.
I'm like, yeah, it was probably a joke, but
Yeah,
some people say it in a serious manner. And I'm like,
yes,
even that kind of small stuff comes out of that type of thinking, that type of
yeah,
philosophy where
exactly.
it's like, where you think you can actually have the power to, literally speak something into existence. It's like, well, I get what you're saying as a joke, but it's like God does that, not
Yeah,
us. So,
yeah, not us. Yeah, it's like
um,
it's superstition,
yeah,
and
right.
a lot of most superstition is based on occult thinking. So this
Hmm.
idea of I'm not going to say that because I don't want to put it out there, that might make it happen or something, or that'll jinx it or something.
Yeah.
All of that is all this thinking that's very pagan
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
finding the occult, because of course sorcery is the belief that you can bring something into existence that does not exist. You can bring it into reality through certain rituals, through certain words, incantations. That's what sorcery
Sure.
is about. And
Mhm.
So that idea is a very occult idea and completely contrary to biblical thinking. But it's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
common in the culture, and we hear it so often that people kind of pick up on it and get these little superstitious fears.
yeah.
Even about luck, like,
Carrying a rabbit foot
oh,
around, or
yeah,
yeah,
like, yeah, I'm gonna go to this interview, so I'm gonna take my, my lucky coin with me or something like that,
yeah, yeah.
in case
Right,
it'll just make me feel better. But this is just giving in to this kind of pagan thinking, and it's not. It takes away from trusting the Lord.
right.
So, if you're going into
Yeah,
the interview and you want the job, and you've prayed, Lord, if this is the job that you want me to have, I'd really like to have this job. Help me do good in the interview, etc. Help me be okay with the results. Then you go in trusting the Lord, not, well, I'm going to take this lucky coin with me just in case,
yeah.
which is completely opposite of trusting God. So these things are opposite
Hmm.
of God.
Yeah,
But,
it's like a football player wearing the same dirty socks to every game. You know?
yes, yes. I've heard that baseball players are very superstitious.
Yeah,
Somebody told me that, or actually more than one person's told me that maybe football players are too. I've heard baseball players are notorious. They're known for that. And so they'll
Maybe.
wear
Yeah,
a t-shirt,
yeah.
for a certain game that they won the game in last time, or socks, the same socks, or,
Hmm.
they always wear the same socks or something like that. So somebody told me that. I don't know it
Yeah.
personally.
Eh, I can imagine it probably goes across the whole
Yeah,
athletic spectrum,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
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 but
yeah,
but
probably.
yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's a thing, you know. Um, but yeah, like in kind of getting back to like Spellbound. What are so again, you wrote it back in, you said
That's it.
2006,
Right.
and then so you re-released it, and obviously there was new information that you put into the book. Um, what?
Well, there isn't a lot of new information because I would have had to write another book. And
Okay,
so
yeah,
this was a republishing of the same book. We went in and updated it. We checked all the links. I did add a few things. I updated a few things. I don't know how, I can't remember if I added anything specific, because for one thing, I had to keep the book in order to republish it under the same copyright and all that stuff. Don Vina, who did all this, understands all the technical stuff better than I do. Fortunately, I
right.
didn't have to know all this. But in order to do that, the book has to be the same length. It can,
Oh,
it can,
okay,
it can be maybe slightly longer or slightly shorter, but not
okay.
much. And so you can't really do anything to change it because then it becomes another book. So
I
then
see,
I
I
would
see.
have had to just write another book, and, with maybe a kind of an altered title or a completely different title. So in that sense, it's updated in a certain sense, but not with a lot of new information, because basically we checked a lot of the things I wrote about in that book, and they're still around.
Yeah, right.
Like the Zodiac Barbie still exists.
So-
And
I
so
remember I remember reading that part. I was like, Zodiac
yeah,
Barbie. Yeah.
yeah, that's she's still around, and I know there's new things, and that would just require another book, and I'm not sure I want to do that, because the main idea of this book was not really to list things that are out there in the culture that are occultic. Although I did that, I gave examples, but the idea is to help Christians understand what the occult is and how to recognize it,
Yeah.
so that I don't have to write another book and list new things, like, oh, now
Yeah.
they have Barbie, with a magic wand, or now they have all this other stuff that's out there now that's new. Because if you've understood the principles of what the occult is and how to recognize them, which is what I was trying to do throughout the book, then
Hmm.
you'll recognize it for yourself.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I only have the updated version. I wasn't sure
Right, right,
if
right,
there was
right.
like
I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there, because technology's changed quite a bit since
Yes. Yes.
2006.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe you were including some different things in the technological world that the occult is
Yeah,
is
I did go through and change. I put in the word online,
okay. Yeah.
which I replace sometimes with bookstore. You can find this in the bookstores. I might have, then I would write, you could find this in bookstores and online, or I might just have you can
Yeah.
find it online. So I saw a place, I came across a place where I forgot to do that. And then I was like, oh, I didn't do that. I didn't put online in there because I think I have a TV bookstores, and then I forgot to put online. But I put it in most places so
Yeah.
that, showing that, online, well, basically now, actually now, there's so much more of this in the culture than when I first wrote that book because of the internet, because people find this stuff online, because people have smartphones, and children, a lot of children and certainly teenagers have smartphones. And so they can just access any of this stuff. It's easy if they
Yeah.
want to look up their zodiac sign, or, what does my zodiac sign mean? That's just takes them, 10 seconds to find it. So
Right. Right.
it's much more accessible now because
Hmm.
of that than it was when I wrote the book. So the topic, the occult, and trying to understand what it is and how to recognize it is much more of an issue now than it was when the book first came out.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. And so you do talk about, well, a lot about how kind of occult teachings and philosophies and things are kind of being marketed to kids in
Mhm,
through all kinds of different mediums,
mhm,
books and movies and games.
mhm.
um and so what role would you say that these things, like books and movies, things like Harry Potter even, and Ouija boards or horoscopes, like you just mentioned, what role do you think that those things have, or do they play in drawing kids into occult thinking?
Yeah, I think that there is something about these things like horoscopes and Harry Potter and everything that is very appealing, because there's the idea of sort of secret knowledge or hidden knowledge.
Hmm.
And for a lot of people, that's very alluring and tempting. They want to know, they want to understand it better. It's sort of secretive, it's very provocative. The cult is very provocative, and it just kind of pokes at you in certain places where you have this, where our fallen nature is intrigued by something secretive or something that's supernatural. So there's the lure of the supernatural. Kids are really into this because, I mean, I've spoken to, I don't know, probably a few hundred youth groups in my ministry. And, you know, they're always interested in this. They're always have their questions could just go on forever. Usually I just get tons of questions when I speak. And because they don't know who else to ask these questions to, and sometimes they don't want to ask the questions because they're afraid that the adult, whoever it might be, whether it's the youth leader or the parent, might think, oh, well, you're interested in that, or you don't even want to go there. They might just say that.
Yeah.
Or they might not know the answer. So I find that they have a lot of questions about this. So I know it's something, because they see it in the culture so much, and maybe have friends who are into some of these things. um they want to know, they want answers on this stuff. They want to know, what is it, does astrology work, can witches really cast spells? These are the kind of things they're wondering. And a lot of people just really don't know how to answer those questions. uh
Hmm.
and my ministry, part of my ministry is answering them, is that's what I do, I answer those questions. so
Yeah. Right. Right.
so I think that young people have, partly because of the culture they're surrounded by, they're exposed to this. There is just something about these things in the occult that has this appeal. It's a dangerous appeal. And in fact, the fact there might be danger in it appeals to some kids, especially
Yeah.
teenage boys who get into sorcery. They are actually drawn to it by the fact that it's considered dangerous.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I've
There's a lot of
had,
kids that chase that type of thing, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had some tell me this personally, that they like the idea of the danger. It's a challenge to them. You know, it's kind of like, I guess, extreme sports. You know, you do it because it's challenging and it's sort of dangerous, and you want to see if you can do it. And it's kind of that, it has that same kind of, so some areas of the occult, it's the actual danger of it is appealing.
Yeah, it brings a thrill, you know.
It
It's like,
brings a thrill, and there's the idea of these of this kind of secret knowledge, or this hidden, you know, supernatural power you might be able to develop. And maybe you think you could develop telepathy, the power of telepathy, and know what people are thinking. You know,
mm-hmm,
all of this, it all appeals to the fallen nature.
mm-hmm.
And it's just, I mean, some people are put off by it. They don't like it. They think it's weird or strange, or they know it's evil, and they don't, you know, they're completely uninterested in it. But I would actually say they're the minority. I think most people have some kind of,
Yeah.
there's some kind of intrigue in it that appeals to them. Somebody just sent me just today, I mean, I only saw it like an hour ago, a new Pew Research poll that shows 25% of Christians say they believe in astrology. Now, I haven't had time to read the article, but I saw, you know, the headline, a quarter
Mm-hmm.
of Christians say. Now, I realize these polls, you know, they're not exact, and I don't know what question they ask. I don't know if they said, do you believe in astrology, or if they said, do you read your horoscope, or do you think there's something to astrology, or maybe they ask all those questions, you know. um, so, but the fact that they came up with 25% that's a pretty high number of Christians, I would say. This is not the culture, this is Christians.
Right.
And it actually does not surprise me too much, because I get asked a lot about astrology by adults. Like they'll say things like, well, why did God put the zodiac signs there if they don't mean anything? Or why is it that I really fit my zodiac sign? And, you know, why did the horoscope I read the other day come true? Isn't there something to astrology? Now, I've been asked that I don't know how many times by Christians. So if Christian adults think that way and think there might be something to astrology, even when they know God completely condemns it, and they're kind of intrigued by it, and they actually want me to say, yes, there is something to it. That's what they want me to
Yeah.
say.
Well, you got to say, like, you know, what
Like
in
that.
what sense though, right? You know, like in what sense is there something to it?
Yeah, but they want something to be, they want there to be something true.
Positive.
And
Yeah,
there is,
something.
yeah, positive, and there isn't.
Yeah,
And
right.
you know, and so if adults can think like that, you can imagine younger kids who are seeing this stuff in school and with their friends and online. What's their thinking? I mean, they're, you
Yeah.
know, even more intrigued by it, and maybe even looking into it. Um, you know, it just, and you can't think, I think a lot of parents think their child is sort of immune to this if they're going to church and they're going to the youth group, or they go to Sunday school and they're reading the Bible, then they're kind of immune. And
Hmm.
they're not immune. No child is immune to actually being drawn to it, uh,
Right. Yeah.
and getting involved in it. So it's it's going to be a constant danger, you know,
Yeah.
until Jesus comes back. It's just going to be, it's going to always be there. This is going to be, it's kind of Satan's playground. It's where he really, I mean, he tempts in a lot of different ways. You know, he tempts with alcohol and gambling and pornography and all those areas. He's really good at temptations with those areas. But in the occult, because it deals with the supernatural, and it deals with this deceptive way of making things look good. You know, it's like angel of light kind of stuff. Um, it's really where Satan excels at deceiving people. And I think the occult can be so disguised as something so harmless. Um, there's this kind of, I don't know how many Christian women do this, but when I was in the New Age and I went to like baby showers, one of the common things that you did was hold like you could put a pencil, tie a pencil at the end of a string and hold it over the woman's belly
Oh yeah, yeah,
and see which way
yeah,
it goes, whether it's a girl or boy.
yeah,
And that game was played like at so many baby showers I went to. That's actually that. And that, see, looks like kind of, a lot of people may think, oh, this is just some kind of fun game someone made up or something. It's actually a form of divination.
yeah, yeah. Right,
So,
right.
that kind of thing looks very harmless, but it's really divination. And so when you engage in these things, you basically are giving yourself another chance to be you're giving yourself a chance to be deceived, number one. Number two, you're you're prepping yourself to be interested in something else, maybe something a little stronger than holding the pencil over the pregnant woman's baby belly. It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like you're paving the way to go further into
Hmm.
something else.
Yeah, yeah. You're
um,
kind of opening that door to.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that this is kind of like a hot topic, right? I remember maybe it was even just a few years ago that there was this big debate, over Harry Potter, like over parents, like whether or not parents should allow their kids to read it or watch it or whatever the case may be. And there's other things like fantasy, Lord of the Rings and things like that. Um, so do you think that fantasy fiction, like these stories, necessarily promote occultism? Or do you think is there like a little bit of freedom in there? Is there discernment that we can use and teach our kids with these things? Or do you think things like, I guess, Harry Potter's, that's the popular um, example. Do you think things like that should just be completely avoided at all costs? Because I've kind of heard both sides of the coin, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of. I've even seen people say, "Oh, like Harry Potter plays you can almost put a biblical twist on it, because he plays
Oh,
this
oh, oh, there's several
savior
people
character
who
and
say
all.
that.
You're
Yeah,
right,
there's
right,
several people who make the case for Harry Potter either having a Christian theme or having Christian themes in it. Yeah, which
yeah.
I completely disagree with.
Yeah,
But
right. I've heard that more with Lord of the Rings, I think, like with
yeah,
Christian
yeah.
themes and things. But I haven't read either one, so I don't
Oh,
know. I don't know much about. I mean, I've
okay.
seen, I think, maybe one or two of the Harry Potter movies, probably when I was younger, but I've never been a big fantasy guy. um, I
Yeah.
think the most that I've gotten into fantasy is probably like Pilgrim's Progress. So
It's an allegory. It's not a fantasy.
Okay, yeah. So, and that's probably the closest to
Yeah.
to
And
that. But
no, really, you're asking really the right question there with which is a big question, and I'm going to have several. I'm going to be talking for a while to answer it, just to let you
not,
know.
yeah, no, that's okay. I figured, yeah,
There's a lot of
it's a lot
things.
to unpack. So,
Yes, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I make a distinction between fantasy and the occult. They are not the same thing.
hmm
And I actually have a chapter in the book
hmm
on the distinction between fantasy and the occult, which I highly encourage people to read. Maybe that should be actually the first chapter they read if they get the book.
sure,
So, I make a distinction. Fantasy, which is, of course, making stuff up that isn't real, and you have a story with just making things up. The princess in a tower, and a dragon, maybe, who's the dangerous dragon the prince has to slay, or Cinderella and things like that. You have these total kind of fantasies. Now they can contain elements of the occult.
mm,
And they don't necessarily contain elements of the occult, but they can. I always give the example of Superman as a fantasy with no occult overtones. I am not aware of any. Now, I have not seen, I don't think, all the Superman movies, but I'm talking about the classic Superman that came out on TV, and I guess the initial comic books and things. Um, I never came across anything occultic in it, because having X-ray vision and flying, with his cape is not an
Yeah.
occult. It's not an occult activity. That's not mentioned in God's list in Deuteronomy 18 or anywhere in the Bible.
Could you
So,
could you imagine X-ray vision being in
yeah,
Deuteronomy 18?
yeah. Of course, yeah. No X-rays then, so that would make sense. But then you could have something like,
Flying with capes.
flying with case, seeing, seeing through things. There's
Yeah.
nothing about seeing through things.
Right.
But yeah. So this is just fantasy. That's that's a pure fantasy, and a lot of the stuff that are out now with the something like the X-Men, for example, is kind of a mixture. There's sort of a mixture of fantasy, and then you have some of the characters have these powers that are kind of occultic. But like, for example, the power to freeze things or the power to start fire, those are all fantasy things. That has nothing to do with the occult. So that's part of the problem, is that people don't know the difference. And the other part of the problem is that you'll have them mixed, like in Harry Potter. So in Harry Potter, you have both fantasy elements and occult elements. And the stories, all the stories mix them. There's enough occult elements, though, for me to have written an article on all the books and warned about them. And I spent several years in my ministry. I actually did at least 12 different interviews just on Harry Potter when it was, really everybody was talking about it, and it was so controversial in the church. I was just getting a lot of questions. I got a lot of criticism for my stand, because I took a pretty strong stand on it. I was being asked in youth groups by teenagers about it. In fact, that's how I first decided to start reading Harry Potter, is when I talked to a youth group. And I remember it was on, I think it was in New Jersey. And I remember this, and I remember they were 8th grade. And this boy said, I'm wondering what you think about Harry Potter. Now, I had only vaguely heard of it. It had just been out a short time, and I didn't really know about it. And I said, I had heard about it. And I said, isn't Harry Potter a boy who does things like he learns how to cast spells and things like that? And the guy said, yeah. And I said, well, I haven't read it yet, but I have an issue with that. And I told him why. I said, because God's so clear in denouncing this, when you have a character in the book and he's the hero or the main character, and he's doing these things that violate what God says, I said, then I have an issue with that. I don't think that's good. I said, I don't think it's good. I don't think it's a good book for anybody to read, especially Christians. So I gave my view right then. That's the first time I ever said anything about Harry Potter. Well, after that, then it led to, I started reading the books, and I was writing articles on them. I eventually saw all the movies. I wrote articles on all the movies. This is all on my website, christiananswersnewage.com. So you can just put Harry Potter in the search box and a lot will come up.
Okay.
And so my issue, here's the other thing that's confusing about this. In the book or video game or movie, whatever it may be, if there is any occultism, is it being done by the good characters or by the bad characters? If the bad characters are doing it, like the witch in Snow White, okay, I don't really have an issue with that, because the character is portrayed as evil, which is how it should be. Okay.
You expect them to do evil things.
Right. The evil witch is doing something evil. Okay, I don't have an issue with that. So it's not that I'm not saying anything with any occult material is bad. I'm saying if it's presented in a good way, or if the main character who is presented as the hero or as a good character the character that people are going to identify with is doing occult activities, and that is seen, that helps him or her, or it's seen as a good thing, or it helps them vanquish the bad characters, then that's where I have the issue.
Yeah.
So, and now fantasy, let me say something else. For example, Lord of the Rings. I am not, like you, I am not a fantasy person at all. Zilch. I'm just totally that's not my area that I enjoy at all.
Yeah.
But so I had never read Lord of the Rings. But when people started asking me, because of Harry Potter, they asked me what I thought of Narnia and what I thought of Lord of the Rings. Those were the questions I was getting. And then the Lord of the Rings movies were going to come out. There started to be all these promotions. And I thought, okay, I'm going to read Lord of the Rings. So I read The Hobbit, and I read that trilogy, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which, believe me, took a lot of effort on my part.
If you're not into that stuff, it's you got to push through. It's
really, and some parts of it, I remember this one chapter on the trees where the trees are walking and talking and something's going on. It's like the longest chapter in the world. I thought I was never going to get to the end of it. I was like, when is this chapter going to end? Anyway, I pushed through it. I did not see any promotion of the occult in a good way in Lord of the Rings. There was only one scene that I recall where I think it's the Elf Queen looks into this water. There's some water in a little, I don't know what it is, some kind of little pool or something. And she sees something. She sees something from the future in it, which that's called scrying, and that is an occult activity.
Oh, yeah.
That was the only thing that I saw that was positive for any kind of occult activity. There's now here's what I'm asked about a lot is Gandalf, and they're like, well, Gandalf's a wizard, but Tolkien later wrote that he used that word because he didn't know any other word to use, and he said he did not use it meaning that Gandalf was some kind of sorcerer.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
He explained that Gandalf was actually like an angelic being. Like the closest parallel we can think of for Gandalf is he's kind of like an angel. So Tolkien explained that he's not an occult wizard. Now, and one point, there's a spell that's been cast over this king and his castle, and they go there, and I think Gandalf removes the spell. But see, he's removing it as an angelic type being.
Right. Yeah.
He does have supernatural power, but he's not practicing the occult.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't have issues with Lord of the Rings. I think that the message is actually good. The message is, that power corrupts. That's one of them. That's the main message, that when men get power, they use it in a corrupt way. They become consumed by it. I think that's a good message.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that message.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with it. Narnia, I only read The Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe when I was very young. I wasn't a Christian. It didn't seem like a Christian book to me. There was nothing about it that made me think of Christianity. So I just read it and I thought, well, that was kind of interesting. My father had all the Narnia books. And I read that one. I wasn't interested in any of the others. I never read the others. Now I have a friend who's written books on Narnia. His name is Robert Velarde. I would suggest you go to Amazon, put his name in the search box, Velarde. He has at least 2 books on Narnia and C.S. Lewis. He does not think C.S. Lewis promotes the occult.
Right.
Velarde would know. He's got very good insight into the New Age and the occult.
That's good.
I know him personally. So,
okay. Good.
As far as I can tell, I have not. Nobody's convinced me that Narnia promotes the occult. So my main issue with fantasy is, or any story is it promoting occult activities in some way? Is it making it look good? Is it making it look powerful? Like it could help you? Is the main character using it?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a long answer to your question, but it's a very important, it's a very important question because that's that's the kind of discernment we need to cultivate today because of what's out there, because video games and other
Yeah.
and movie. Now, Doctor Strange, for example, I have big problems with Doctor Strange.
I've heard of it from a lot of people. I know it was really popular. I never watched anything, but I don't really know much about it. I mean, I understood that there was some kind of interesting occult type, I guess, characters and teachings and things in it, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, well, I have an article on my website. If anybody's interested, you can just put Doctor Strange in the search box. I didn't see the movie, The Multiverse or something. I have it on my list to watch it, but I did watch the other movie, and I found a number of occult elements in it. And the reason I watched it is that I was going to talk to a class at a Christian school about about basically the teacher wanted me to address where we see the occult in popular programs and movies and stuff. And she mentioned Doctor Strange. So, because she said the kids were fascinated by Doctor Strange.
Oh
So
yeah.
I watched it because of that. And then I listed all the occult things I saw and I sent them to her and she shared them with the kids and I talked to them about it. And I talked to them about some other programs that were on. WandaVision was very popular. It's some kind of series that it's this woman who gets into witchcraft, and it's kind of a fantasy. She's in this she lives in this suburb, but it's all really in the context of fantasy. I had never heard of WandaVision. I didn't know that 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds were watching this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so I watched parts of it. There's ways where you can go online and on YouTube you can watch some of the shows or parts of them. And so I also discussed that. So there's a lot of stuff out there that's always coming out that's new.
Right.
Kids hear about from other kids and they start watching this stuff. And so and a lot of these things will have these occult themes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really hard to keep up. There's too much coming out. That's why my book is supposed to be, the only thing that you really, besides the Bible, of course, only thing that you really need to understand and identify the occult. It really is supposed to help you recognize it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's tough as a parent,
Hmm.
what I guess what advice would you have for parents to, I guess, help navigate these things without becoming, like extremely fearful or
Hmm.
legalistic to the point, because I asked that because I can't tell you how many people I know growing up whose parents were just super strict. I mean, about what they could read and watch and listen to, and as a parent now, I totally get it. When I was younger, I was like, man, your parents are, they're
They're really strict.
yeah, like they're killing the mood here. But I totally get it as a parent now, and it's really hard because my wife and I, we talk about it all the time. We're like, man, how can we make sure that we're not just like helicopter parenting and making sure that
Right.
we're not becoming legalistic, because a lot of those kids that I knew growing up, I mean, they hit a certain age and they just went off the rails,
Right. Right.
because they were just like suppressing stuff for so long that, they
Right.
got to the stage where there's the natural rebellion kicked in, and,
Right.
some of them returned and some of them didn't. And, it's like I guess a looming fear I have, like
Right.
how can we navigate that without just, yeah, I don't know, just becoming so overbearing that the
Right.
kids, it's like
Yeah. You don't
they want to do it now because you've told them so many times not to.
times not to do it, and it's actually made them interested in it. sometimes, like why is if it's so terrible, there must be something about it,
Yeah, yeah,
that's interesting, and so yeah,
yeah.
it is, it's very difficult, so I have in the book, really, first of all, you constantly being praying for wisdom from the Lord, know the scriptures well, that will help you also. um, but I think that a lot depends on the age. I really go a lot by ages. I believe in younger children, definitely not letting them see certain
Oh,
programs. Definitely,
sure.
they're too young to filter that, to understand it. Even if you explain things to them, they're too young to take that in. So I think, maybe under age 8 or so, there's certain movies that come out, certain topic, like Coco came out, and that movie has some terrible occult things in them. I wouldn't suggest taking a young child to that.
What is that?
It's Coco was, I think it's where he goes to the land of the dead.
Oh,
If I'm thinking of the right one, it's Mexican. It's the
I know what you're talking about.
I watched it because so many people were asking me about it,
Yeah.
and it's so under a certain age, I think that kind of thing, you shouldn't read Harry Potter to an 8-year-old. I just think their critical thinking skills are not developed.
Yeah,
They
right.
don't. And so what you do is you hopefully teaching them, they're learning scripture, they're learning it's God's word, it has the authority over our lives.
Mhm.
And then as you begin to see them, maybe they're getting exposed to some of this, or they have friends telling them about these programs, you can show them the scripture in Deuteronomy 18, 10, 11, and say, God says these practices are bad because this is what people did to get information from their false gods.
Mhm.
That's what they were using them for mainly, or to
Right.
get power from their false gods. So, and we see these things in the culture. They're all around us, and many times they're games. And so you can say it's a game, but the idea of the game is this idea based on these practices that God hates. And so you kind of, gradually let them know there are things out there we need to watch out for because God hates them, and because they can, um, you know, you don't want to make your child scared, but you can say it can, uh, it can be a negative thing for you. It can be something you can tell them when they're a little older, this can affect you negatively. So I think at a certain age, maybe 12, 13, 14, depending on how mature the child is,
Mhm.
if they are insisting on something like reading Harry Potter or something else, then if you're willing, I think the parent needs to read it as well. Either read it with
Mhm.
the child or read it
Yeah.
on your own, and then you can discuss it with the child. You can say,
Yeah.
hey, I've read chapter 14 now, and in this chapter, Harry does this. He learns how to cast a spell. What do you think of that? What did
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Then you have a discussion with them,
Yeah.
and point out, use it as a way to discuss why these things are evil, why God doesn't, want you to do them. I mean, I had one time I spoke to, I think it was second to fourth grade, I think it was, or maybe it was third to fifth. I'm sorry, I don't remember. It was one or the other. And this was a Sunday school class. This was at my church,
Mhm.
and I was asked to address Harry Potter. Now, I was aware, the first question I asked was, how many of you have read Harry Potter? And quite a few kids raised their hand.
Mm.
So, and since they were pretty young, I was pretty sure their parents knew about it and had given them permission. So there I have kids whose parents think it's okay, and I'm there to really tell them it's not okay. So I had to be very careful and not
Yeah. Yeah.
not cause any controversy. So I went to Deuteronomy 18. We read the passage. I explained what it meant. And then I just asked them about things. I said, what about casting spells? Does Harry do that? Yes. Okay. So he's casting spells. I said, now, so what we need to be aware of is that we're going to read stories where we have people doing these things that God talks about. And I said, so when you're reading the story, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just reading the story. but you don't want to get interested in it. You don't want to think it's good, and you don't want to try to do it. So I took that approach. I took the approach where I'm not saying it's, I'm trying to make them feel bad for reading it because their parents had let them read it. But here's what we want to know. We want to know this is wrong. This is what God says. So we don't want to actually do these things. So that was kind of how I addressed it. And I didn't, get any negative feedback from that. So I think that, you can do that with an older child. You can just point out the things in there and say, these things actually exist. Some of these things actually exist. The casting spells actually exist. The divination actually exists. Running into the little door at the train station to get on the train to go to Hogwarts does not exist. That's fantasy.
Right.
Three-headed dog or whatever. That's from, I think, Greek mythology. That doesn't exist. That's not occultic. So there are a lot of elements that are just fantasy. The dragon they have in there, that's just fantasy, etc. But definitely there's enough occult themes in Harry Potter. The conjuring of the Patronus is very occultic. Reminded me of a couple of things. Reminded me of the spirit, having an animal spirit guide. And also reminded me of something where you conjure something that is, it's called the thought form, and you conjure something from your mind that has a kind of independent existence, but it's attached to you. It's kind of part of you, but it isn't.
Okay.
And it actually reminded me of that when I was reading the book. It made me think of conjuring a thought form. And then it made me also think of the animal spirit guide. And unfortunately, there's actually some literature, some cartoons out there. I did some Facebook posts on this several years ago about animal spirit guides. They're actually books for children on how to find your animal spirit guide. Believe it or not. Actual books on here's how you find your animal spirit guide. And so I did a Facebook post on that. I did a Facebook post on I can't remember her name. There's some popular program with a princess in it, and there's all kinds of occult stuff in that. I wish I could remember the name, but she's very popular, and she has an advisor who's like a sorcerer. And she learns these different little things, and there's one which is talks where they sing a song about finding your special animal spirit guide. I mean, it's just not, when I saw it, I just almost couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is like sorcery 101. Let's,
right.
Contact 101. So, and so you can think, I'm always saying, don't think because it's a cartoon, it's
yeah.
Some cartoons I've seen are just dripping occultism. I would consider incredibly evil, but they're cartoons. So
they seem innocent because
they seem so innocent, and they have cute characters and everything. There's a princess, and so you think, oh, this is just all fantasy, but no, there was actual occult stuff going on in there. So that's another thing as a parent, is to be aware. What is your child watching? What is your child reading? You need to be aware. And then if they've seen something, maybe they've gone to a friend's house and they watched something.
Yeah, right.
Then talk to them about it, but not in a condemning way. Just say, let's I think we should talk about this because this is something that God addresses. And so we need to talk about it. And then you just have a discussion. And this way, I think the child feels, they feel respected, and they feel that they feel they can tell you things because you're not going to jump down their throat. So you want to have them feel they can come tell you. So if something that's uncomfortable, they're willing to tell you about it. So, you want the door to always be open, and all that kind of stuff. So, and I also, one of the things I emphasize at the end of the book is the character of God. And I said, when we know the character of God and understand who God is, it really helps us discern these things because they go against his character.
Right.
And helps us understand that, it all starts with the character of God, and God is completely true. He's completely good. There's nothing in God that's bad or untrue. Therefore, things that are untrue and have evil in them go against his character. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why we want to not indulge in them.
Yeah.
Well, that's another approach too.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like, being able to keep the door open, being a kind
Mhm.
of a safe place for your kids to go and be able to talk about anything. And
Right,
I think
right.
that ties kind of into what you were saying, like when it comes to things like Harry Potter or anything else. It's like if your kids are really, really interested and they really want to read it, I think what you said is good, like read it with them. Because
Right,
I think for you, it could be a teaching moment, but it could also be a learning moment for yourself. And I
yeah,
think that also that can even turn into somewhat of a Bible study because like you said, you could be reading it and you could come across a part where he's whatever casting a spell or something and you can ask him, hey, like what do you think of that? And what do you think God says about that?
right,
Like
right,
what does the Bible say about that? And then you could get into like, all right, well, where can we find that in the Bible? And then that might
right,
help them remember, like, oh yeah, Deuteronomy 18, like that's where
yeah,
I can go when it comes to these occult ideas. I can go to Deuteronomy 18 and I can test what I'm seeing or reading against scripture, and I can see, is this a good thing? Is this just fantasy, or is this a cult? Or
right,
so yeah, I
right,
think I think all of that's really good. And yeah, maybe and also kind of hits on the way that we can navigate that and not be super legalistic. We can
right.
offer to say like, all right, well, let's get into it. Like
Yeah, let's talk
if you
about it.
really want to read it, then like let's try to understand it together. Let's try to read it together.
Right,
Um,
exactly. And I would say that's with, an older, at least I would say at least age 11, and then
oh
maybe
yeah, sure,
maybe 10 if they're kind of mature, and it depends on what it is.
sure.
But, probably 11, 12 around there. And then you can kind of, then they can grasp, they have the ability to grasp these concepts and
Hmm.
apply them better than when they're younger.
Yeah, and so I think maybe this might end up being one of the last few questions I have, but when it comes to kids, because Spellbound is kind of, again, it's about how occultism is infiltrating the minds of kids and being marketed to them and things like that. What are some red flags that parents can look for maybe in their kids, or maybe even in the friends that they're hanging out with, that they're familiar with or that they know really well, that yeah, what are some red flags that we can look for to see, okay, maybe my kid's starting to become interested in some kind of occult practice or teachings. What are some things that we can look for in that so that we can kind of stay on top of it and try to nip it in the bud, as it's
Yeah.
happening, instead of letting it get, so deep that that now we're trying to dig our way out.
Yeah, it's a good question. And, I think the problem is that you're not always going to see,
Hmm.
it's not always going to be apparent. If your child is getting interested in some area like that, and they know that you might not like it, or that it might be wrong or something, then it's going to be very hard to, tell they're interested. I
Yeah.
think that's why it's important to know what they're reading and what they're watching, and
Hmm.
what movie did they see when they went over to spend the night with their friend, etc. So I think that's the primary thing to do. But then I think I guess, if their language may show it by certain things they reference, they
Hmm.
may refer to certain things that sound strange, or they may refer to, uh, I'm trying to think what they might say. I don't know that a child would do this or not. They might ask a question about it. I don't know. They might ask a question like, what's Mother Earth?
Mm.
Who's Mother Earth? Or my friend has an altar, Wiccans now kids who get into Wicca will often make an altar in their room, and it will look. It depends on how they make it, but they can have like a rock there. They could have some sticks.
Like a
They,
sculpture of Justin Bieber made out of gum.
I don't know. Oh my goodness, that's horrible. They could have a little statue of a woman, which would be like the goddess or something. And, so your child says, oh, Mindy has this altar in her room. It's really pretty. She has a statue of this pretty woman. And, she has these pretty crystals or something. Or they start talking about crystals. Oh, my friend has a crystal bracelet. Can I have one? Well, what is she wearing the crystal bracelet for? Maybe her mother's a New Ager. And she gave her this bracelet because she said that it would bring her protection or something like that. So I think if they start talking about anything that sounds a little different, or a little just different from things you talk about and things you usually do and know about, I would just ask them about it. I'm not sure that's very helpful, but
I think it is.
I think it's very hard to tell. I think that a lot of parents, when they find out their children are involved, it's usually after the child's been involved for a while, in my experience, because they couldn't tell. Now, one way is to do internet, if they're on the internet, on a computer, to do internet searches to see what they've looked at, because I know of 2 cases where the child got into Wicca online. And so, when they eventually went there and looked, they saw these Wicca websites and stuff that the child had been to. This was a young teenage boy. Okay. So that's another area to be aware of too, is what are they doing? I know some families, now of course with smartphones, it's harder to do, but I know when it used to be more just laptops and computers, desktops, they would have it in the living room or something so that, the child couldn't do things that the parent wouldn't see.
Yeah, right.
That's a little far-fetched. And now with smartphones, unless you don't let your child have a smartphone, they can just look stuff up on their phone.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very hard to tell. I don't think that there's always red flags that you see, except I think the main way would be what they're talking about.
Yeah. I have a friend, you're speaking of smartphones. I honestly can't remember who it was that I was talking about or talking to, but we were talking about kids and smartphones, and both of my kids, they don't have anything like that. I mean, they have like tablets that are made for kids with, some games on them and stuff, and they'll get like maybe an hour on the weekends or something with those, but I forget who it was. This is gonna drive me crazy, but he was like, "Yeah, man, I got my kid a smartphone, and I told him it was only for texting and calling us." He's like, "But I see him on YouTube and stuff all the time." I'm like, what do you expect? Like, what do you mean? Like, you're surprised, Like,
yeah, really. I mean, it's just gonna happen. That's why.
Like, just get them a flip phone if that's all you wanted them to be able to really do.
Yeah. So, that's why it's important before they get to the age where they're going to have these smartphones, and have more access to things.
Yeah.
Talk to them about this stuff, to address it early on. If there's anything they're exposed to, or maybe a popular movie comes out and it's for children and it has some occultism, even if they aren't going to see it, you can talk to them about it and say, this is why we're not going to go see that movie. And so, Frozen 2 has, it to me has one of the clearest occult themes, or, not just one theme. There's several occult pagan themes in Frozen 2. I was really kind of bowled over by it. I have an article on it on my website. It's just, and basically the message of it is that it's a really kind of a Wiccan message, because it's built around a pentagram, the 4 elements, and then there's the pentagram is, it's the star, like a 5-point star.
It's a creation over creator type thing.
Well, it's there's the 4 points on the side are earth, water, fire, and the top point is usually goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's called spirit. And it turns out that the main character finds out she's the top point of the pentagram. Now, the word pentagram is never used in the.
Yeah, right. Right.
But that's clear. It's clear that that's what it comes to. I mean, you kind of realize it towards the end. But up until then, there's still all these occult themes and very strong environmental things that are so, kind of a worship of creation, where
Mm-hmm.
it's actually seen as wrong that these village made a dam to keep their village from flooding. That's put down in the movie as evil.
Uh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, the views in it are very extreme. And when I first did a Facebook post on it, and I had so many, that may be the Facebook post I've had the most comments on ever. It was never ending and never, I mean, even after a couple of years after I did it, I still was getting
Still,
comments. I
oh
also
man.
had a huge attack from some group on Facebook that apparently is a mixture of atheists, witches, um, I don't know, other people into the occult, sorcerers. It's like a group of them,
Mm,
and one of them tagged the group when they saw my post, and after that, they just swooped in. I spent a few hours for several days having to delete and ban because
mm-hmm.
they were leaving obscene messages, many of them.
Oh
I
yeah.
did try to engage in dialogue with a few of them. I managed to have a very brief dialogue, and I didn't ban everybody, but I had to ban a lot of them. I've never had an attack like that on Facebook ever. It was just
Sheesh.
unbelievable. So this was all on Frozen 2 of all things, a movie for,
Yeah, yeah. That's
you
yeah.
know,
That's
and
funny
this
that.
is what I mean by how you think this is going to be this, because Frozen 1, which I did not see, apparently I don't know if it had any occult themes. Some people thought it did, some people thought it didn't, but it was much more toned down. But apparently in Frozen 2, it
Took
was
off.
just really out there. And
Mm,
but you would think, especially if you saw Frozen 1 and it didn't seem to have anything bad, you would think this is just a nice movie. And a lot of people wrote in the comments they took their child or their grandchild. I took my grandchild to this movie, and then, while we were watching, some of them were upset. Like, I was so upset, we left. Some of them left. Others
mm,
were like, I'm really sorry I took them.
yeah.
So, yeah, so it's just, you can't get away from it. It's out there.
It's pretty crazy that it just me thinking about it, going back to some of these movies because I have kids and a lot of these movies come up. It's just thinking about how naive I have been to these things, or maybe not naive, but just how blind I've been to these things for so long until more recently. Like I would probably watch these movies and not really think much of it. I, like my mind wasn't working on that level of like picking these things out and using that kind of discernment and seeing like, oh yeah, that was weird, that was that was occultic. But I will tell you one movie that I picked up on it, I mean, immediately before I even was interested in this topic at all. I don't know if you've seen it, but the movie Moana, um,
I've read about it. Yeah, I've read
when
about
that movie first came out, I remember looking at my wife and I was like, this is very pagan.
it.
Like
Yes, yes,
everything about this is very
yes, very
earth
pagan.
worshipy and
Yes,
just very,
yes, it is.
very, very pagan. Yeah, it was,
It
you
is.
know,
It's very new agey pagan.
uh huh,
The
like yeah, just tribal things. Yeah,
Yeah, very,
yeah.
and there's other cartoons that are kind of like that and touch on that.
Mm-hmm.
The movie Avatar by James Cameron, because
I
there are two
know a lot
movies.
about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I have an article on that movie, and that is very the same kind of idea, very pagan nature. Mother Nature is everything because he
Yeah.
goes to this other planet, and the people are blue, and they're all in tune and harmony with nature, and everything honors nature, and then there's a big huge tree at the end where they believe the goddess lives, and they're actually bowing down and worshiping it at the end of the movie. I mean, it's appalling. And there were a lot of Christians who told me they liked the movie, and I couldn't understand it. And I did this
Yeah.
Facebook post, and I said, I don't get how any Christian can watch this movie and not be disturbed. And so that was kind of, a statement that some people didn't like. But I'm sorry. I just, to me, it's just so obvious. It's so obviously horrible that you have the movie, honoring a goddess in a tree. I don't know how much more plain you can make it as a pagan, as a pagan theme. And, I was like, what? So anyway, that's an article on my website, because
Yeah.
a lot of my Facebook posts I end up doing as articles, because now I can put on my new website, I can put articles up myself. And so I've added tons of articles to my website since it's been up for like 2 years, the new one. I've added tons of articles, just tons.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I turn a lot of Facebook posts into articles. So
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
so that's another wasn't made, I guess, specifically for children, although probably maybe a lot of children saw it. But that's a movie that I think it's typical of the kind of things we see today that have these pagan or new age or occult themes in them.
Yeah. I think it's kind of a good thing that I stay busy enough that I'm oblivious to a lot of TV shows and movies. Like I just don't have the time to really get into them.
I know.
Everywhere I go, people are like, "Oh, have you seen this? Have you watched this?" I'm like,
No.
"No, man." Like, honestly, if I get into a TV show, it's usually a TV show that it's doesn't have much of a storyline, because I don't. It's like a action show or something, because like I don't have the time to get into all the characters and the stories and stuff. It's like, dude, everything I'm just running around with the kids' schedules and mine and work, and I just I'm all over the place. So it's kind of a blessing, but but like Avatar, I heard that was another one I heard a ton about. When it first came out, so many people were talking about that movie, and I have yet to see it. And it was like I saw trailers and stuff, and I didn't have any interest in it, and it wasn't even anything to do with like a pagan message or anything. I just saw the trailer and I was like, it just doesn't look like something I'd be into.
It's kind of, I guess it's kind of like a fantasy sci-fi kind
of. Those are like two things I was just never into.
That's probably why you weren't interested. And I saw it because I had read about it, and so I knew there were these pagan themes, and I kept hearing about it, and I thought, well, I need to see for myself. I need to see, what is the message of the movie? What's in here? Because it sounds like it's related to my ministry. So that's why I watch a lot of movies. Just they're related to my ministry. So that's why I watch. That's why I watch. I was so disturbed when I was watching it. There's so many things that just disturbed me. I just wanted to get up and scream. I wanted to yell. It was just hard to sit there and not say anything, because I got disturbed by it.
Sure. Yeah. For you, it makes complete sense because of the type of ministry that you have. It would make sense to like keep up with that type of thing. But like you said, because I've never really been into like fantasy or anything like that. I saw it and I was like, I don't really care to see it.
I can see why. I can see why it didn't appeal to you.
Yeah, and I think my dad ruined sci-fi for me, because every day I'd come home from school and he'd be watching Star Trek or something. I'm like, oh man, like I can't stand this show. It is so bad. But it's funny. It's like I might actually like it now, but at the time, when I was young, I was just like, ooh, I can't get into this, man. Like, my dad did this. He ruined me. He ruined sci-fi for me.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a big sci-fi fan. I have read some sci-fi, and I like some sci-fi movies. I've seen some I really like, because they have intriguing ideas in them and stuff. And I've watched some with my son. He likes some of that stuff. I wouldn't say he's like a huge sci-fi fan, but he does like some sci-fi movies.
Yeah. And I'm trying to open my mind more to these things. Like you brought up Chronicles of Narnia earlier, and I found all 7 books on, I don't know what site it was, but I found all 7 books for like $7.
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay, like I'll buy that, So, I figure I'm like, all right, maybe this will open my eyes to like maybe some of these fantasy stories, and then maybe I'll move on to like Lord of the Rings or something. But who knows? I don't know. We'll see.
I think I think I think Narnia is considered I don't know if it's considered fantasy or an allegory. There is a difference. I think
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings is an allegory. There's I should know these definitions because I was a literature major, but yeah, but I guess you could say they're kind of maybe there is a fantasy element.
Yeah.
Definitely to Narnia, I would say even more than Lord of the Rings. But
Right.
you know, um, so yeah, I just I don't know if you'll ever be able to get through Lord of the Rings because I can tell you, if you are not a fan of that genre, it is a tough cookie to chew. Let me tell you.
I've heard that that chapter you were talking about with the trees talking or walking or whatever. I've heard quite a few people say that chapter is absolutely brutal because they're like, dude, I thought I was reading a book just about like a description of like the woods or something. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like it was. They're like it was.
It's almost like it's not part of the story. It's almost like a chapter that's just a story in itself. Like, although the trees do play a part later, but it's kind of almost like that. It's almost like a story within the story, and it's long. It's very, very, very
Yeah.
long, and the books are long.
Oh
So
yeah.
it was it was hard. It was hard, but some parts of the books, certain elements of the story were kind of interesting. I thought some of it was interesting. I didn't think that of the whole
Yeah.
series.
It got better.
I just happen to remember that chapter, yeah, and I wasn't real caught up in it, but I was very motivated to read it because people were asking me about it, and the movies were coming out, and actually, I thought the movies were very well done.
Yeah.
And one thing to say, just kind of a footnote, is don't don't always think that the movies are accurate to the book,
Oh
because
yeah. Yeah.
the movies in Lord of the Rings add some elements that are occultic that are not in the book.
Okay.
So, for
Yeah.
example, there's a showdown between Gandalf and the bad sorcerer whose name I can't think of right now. And the way they have the showdown is like they're using magic against each other. Well, that's not in the book.
Okay.
So there's some things you might see in the movies and think, well, that seems like occultic to me, but it's not in the book. So
Yeah.
just that's just a little footnote to that.
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. Sure. Good to keep in mind. But yeah, for sure. Well, I don't really have any more questions, but
Okay.
I don't know if you have any closing thoughts that you want to share. When it comes to Spellbound or just the occult in kids.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess my thoughts are just first of all, we don't want one of the things that I say is we don't want our children to be fearful.
Mhm.
And so we don't want to show fear. So when you're warning about any of this stuff, do not act afraid like, something's going to come get you, or, don't show or have superstitious ideas like about haunted houses. And I find a lot of Christian adults really believe in haunted houses. And the thing is, there might be demonic activity in a house if somebody living there is involved in the occult. Yes, I agree. That can happen. But it's not going to be like something's happening because, either dead people have come back because dead people can't come back, or, just because it's random. There are these demonic things going on. This is one of the things I get a lot of email
Mm.
on. So, I think parents need to really want to be biblically based themselves and not have superstitions, because these superstitious ideas will pass on to your kids. They really,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're so common. And sometimes we have these things and we don't realize that they're superstitions and they're based on the occult. So, don't give your child the idea that a haunted house is dangerous because there are demons in them. I mean, this is just, this is the kind of thing that's not a biblical way of thinking. First of all, to be afraid. Second, to assume there's demons in them or something. And then that we should be afraid. We shouldn't. There's nothing in the Bible that tells us to fear Satan. It tells us to be vigilant, to be aware that he tempts, that he deceives. We need to be aware of all of that. We want to be aware and watchful, but we don't need to be afraid because God is greater than anything Satan can do. So I think that's something that Christian parents should keep in mind when they're talking about these areas. Just keep in mind and emphasize to your child, God is greater than all this. We are not afraid of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we're not afraid of someone who's a witch.
Right.
If the child meets in school, there's they meet somebody who does Wicca or witchcraft, they don't need to be afraid of them. So that's one thing that I want to emphasize is the fear element and not having that.
Yeah, no, that is good. That is good, but yeah, hopefully they don't come across that at the school I have them at. That'd be really strange, but
It can happen.
it could happen anywhere.
Even at a Christian school. So
Oh yeah. Oh well, yeah. I've seen some goofy things.
Yeah.
I have seen some weird things. But yeah, that's great, man. So anybody that is listening to this or watching, if this is something that interests you, maybe even if it isn't something that interests you, I think that the book Spellbound is definitely worth a read because it'll open your eyes to a lot of different things that you probably haven't thought about.
Can you show the cover, Mark? I'm sorry, I just thought of this. Can you show the cover? I have it over here. Can I run over and get it?
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say I'd have to run and get it, but if you have it, go ahead.
Yeah, I have it right here. Because I should have had it ready. And I think the thought crossed my mind, and then I didn't. I don't know if you want to edit that part out.
Yeah, that's fine. No big deal.
I want people to see the cover because if you go to Amazon, for example, and you put Spellbound in, the old book might come up too, 2006, and you can't really get hard copies of the old book. It's very hard to get them. And they're like super expensive from sellers for some reason. So you want to get this book anyway, because it is updated. So this is the cover, which has a girl, the light is reflecting, but it's a young girl
holding a phone,
a cell phone. Yeah.
And
so that's the one that you want. And it also says here, updated 2024 edition. Okay. So if you put it in the search box or whatever, make sure that it's this one.
Yeah. And I'll when I release this, I'll try to link the correct, the right edition of the book. So if people are interested, they can click on that, and then they can purchase it from there, or I don't know if it's on online.
And, there's other places that have it. Actually, if they go to if that Midwest Christian Outreach has a whole page on Spellbound.
Okay.
And let me give you that, and I can also email it to you if you could put that link in the show notes or whatever, because on this page, Don, who sets this up, is putting interviews. So this interview will go there.
Okay, good.
There's a bunch of interviews under media, and above that we have some endorsements, so people can read the endorsements. And I think they can read, I'm not sure if they can read the first chapter or not. No, I think that's our Enneagram book. But anyway, there's a thing about me there, but you can read the endorsements, and you can, I don't know if it has where you can get it or not. On my website, let me let people know this. I'm sorry, I just thought of this. On my website, if you go to the page for Spellbound, I have put in Spellbound audio. I have links to all of the audio versions.
Okay.
It's not on Amazon yet. It eventually will be an audiobook, but it isn't yet. Don said it for some reason it takes a real long time on Amazon. but several other sources have audiobook versions.
Okay.
We got it on audio. We got listened to some readers. We picked one that I'm very happy with,
Oh, good.
and he reads the book. So
Okay, great.
so
Awesome.
okay,
Yeah. So, and your website is christiananswersnewage.com.
correct.
So anybody who's interested in Marcia, you can go to that website. There's, like you heard her say, there's a ton of articles. And make sure it's Christian Answers New Age, because I remember when I first looked it up, I was like, Christian Answers the New Age. I put in
Oh,
the.
yeah, I
So
know.
just christiananswersnewage.com, and
.com.
that will bring you to Marcia's
Right.
website and all kinds of articles dealing with so many different things, as you heard her say. But yes, again, pick up Spellbound. It was pretty eye-opening for me, just because, like I said, there's so many things that are kind of like this little Trojan horse has sneaked their way into the culture and into the minds of kids, and you don't really think about it. You brought up like Zodiac Barbie. It's like,
Yeah.
most people wouldn't even really bat an eye to that, because
Yeah.
zodiacs they're just a very common thing that people talk about. So that wouldn't even be something that would trigger anybody or be a red flag. So keep I think it'll open your eyes to being able to discern and see these things, more clearly. Like you'll start to recognize these things and say, oh, okay, that's yeah, that's something I read about, and that's a cultic thing that we should stay away from. So I found some great value in it, and
Thank you.
a lot of value just in your content, your website. There's just a lot of good stuff on there. You have been a good resource as far as this, these topics go: new age, new thought, occultism, just all of it just goes so deep. There's so
Yeah.
many things.
It's
But
vast.
oh yeah. So anyway, I wanted to thank you again for coming on and being on the show again. And who knows? I'm sure we'll find something else to talk about at
Yeah,
a
I'm
at a
sure we
later date.
will. I'm sure we
Um,
will. Something else.
oh
I'm sure
yeah.
I already have a lot of things that you could probably go to my website and look at my articles and find something.
Oh yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'll do that. I'll be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's get her on. Um, so yeah. Yeah. We will revisit some things, I'm sure, at a later date. But Marcia, thank you again for
Thank
coming
you.
on, for taking the time.
Thanks, Mark.
I know you're probably busy. You're a
That's okay.
sought after speaker, and you're got
I
all
like
kinds of
doing
stuff.
interviews, so that's fine. So thank you for having me on. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
of course, anytime. So yeah, if you're listening, you're watching, brothers and sisters, just always be ready to give an answer for the hope that is in you, and to just remember to always do that lovingly and with just respect, and to further the kingdom of God. So thanks for watching, and thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.